Hello, my name is Peter and I'm here at Flow Yoga and Cycle, and I'm going to give you a tutorial today on how to do Bakasana or crow pose. We've got some things that we can do to work up to it if it's something that you're working on, and then I've got some tips to make it even a little bit stronger if you already feel comfortable in it. So let's get started here. First I'm going to do a demo to show you what it looks like, and then I'm going to give you some steps in order to get there. So I talk in class, we've practiced a couple forward flows already, and then we're going to put our hands down, and I talk about getting the knees up in behind the armpits or maybe on the elbows. So you can do a bent arm, and then that's a good option there, lifting the feet up off the mat. Or if you got a little bit more advanced, you could do straight arm, and then we're really working to get the knees tight, tight, tight up into the triceps. So that's straight arms, shoulders forward, lifting up off the mat. So let's do some prep poses. First thing to do is get the wrists a little bit more flexible, a little bit warmed up. We've got a couple options here. We can do hands to the outside, fingers outside, palms down, and then just a little back and forth like this. This would be sort of a step one. We can do sort of a step two, where we point the fingers back towards the knees, and then we rock back. If you're feeling comfortable, you can take your hands forward a little bit more. And if this is a whole lot, just get the hands a little bit closer to the knees and figure out where you want to be with your hips to get a good stretch on the forearms. That's the first direction. The second direction is we're going to take the palms up, fingers either towards one another or back towards the knees. Towards one another, you can rock left and right. And then fingers towards the knees, just rocking the hips back a little bit to try and stretch out those wrists, because this is a big pose for the wrists. All right, that's part one. Wrists feel pretty good now. Circle them out, a little back and forth, just waking them up, making sure that when we put that pressure on them, that we're not getting any constriction or any tightness in the back of the hands or the wrist. That's what we're aiming to avoid here. Next, this is a pose we do pretty regularly, but it's our cat-cows. And we're dropping the belly button towards the mat and reaching the chest forward. That's our cow pose, so that big sway cow back here. And then pressing the fingers away from the knees towards the front wall, taking the belly button towards the ceiling for our big cat pose, the chin tucks. And then just doing a few of those, because we really want to have that, we want to have the sensation of that cat back when we're in the Bakasana. So that's working our spine in this direction here. But the next direction we want to work is between the shoulder blades. We can drop down here, drop in the chest low, shoulder blades are coming together in the back, and then pushing away so that the shoulder blades work away from one another, and doing a few of those. This is the sensation where our shoulders are out of the socket, pressing into the earth. That's the sensation we want in Bakasana. So drop in the chest, and then lifting the chest, shoulder blades wide. Shoulder blades wide, really pressing into the earth. The same sensation that we get in our plank pose. That is our next step. So plank, we're keeping the hips and line between the shoulders and the ankles, so we're not taking the hips up too high, we're not dropping them down too low, but one long line, and the abs are really squeezing in tight. We're trying to take our hip bones and get them closer to the ribs. So we have this sensation going on, so we're not dropping, but squeezing everything nice and tight. If this is where you are, this is a good place to practice, holding your plank for a long time. If you want a little bit more, you can start to bring elbow to knee, both sides, making sure you're even, because that's going to give us that same sensation as when we're in the pose, where we're really squeezing everything nice and tight together. That's one thing to do where we're facing the mat. The other thing to do is similar idea, but we're on our backs. So any ab work you do that's going to squeeze everything nice and tight, that's going to be something that it's going to help us in that crow pose. So you can do it again, but try it with this time, we're going to have the arms up, and we're going to bring our knees to the elbows, and we're just trying to squeeze everything nice and tight. This is the same sensation that we're squeezing when we're upside down in that crow pose. So either trying to get the elbows to the knees, or maybe squeeze the knees outside the triceps is another option. Just trying to get everything nice and tight. Hold it here. Press the elbows into the arms, the knees into the arms, excuse me, and back, and then release. And if you just do that, a couple times, that's going to help fire up the core and get everything nice and tight. So now, let's try that crow pose again. Remember, back wide, shoulder blades pulling away from one another, hips and ribs coming a little closer to one another, and then squeezing the knees really nice and tight towards the elbows or triceps. So we're doing all those things, and now we're starting to take the shoulders forward. This is the part where some people start to get a little bit scared. So we've got some options here. One thing to do is grab a towel, a blanket, anything soft. In the Flow Yoga Studio, we've got really soft floors that makes it a little bit less scary. But at home, you might not have something like that. So anything that's going to make it so that as you start to tip forward, you feel a little bit more comfortable falling forward is going to be helpful. So I'm going to take that blanket, just fold it over a couple times. It doesn't need to be very big, but we want it to be nice and soft. So this way, if I'm starting to practice and I begin to fall, I'm just going to tuck my chin and land on the top of my head on the blanket. You can see the blanket is just a little bit in front of my fingers. So we're working, and we start to tip, and land on the head, no problem at all. That's something you can do at home, probably make it a little bit easier. A little more confidence. So we're coming back here. Our hands are about shoulder width distance apart. We're really pressing into our pointer finger mound, so trying to get that flattened to the earth and taking our shoulders back as we get the shoulder blades away from one another. Now watch my shoulders. See where my shoulders are right above my hands? If they're right above my hands, there's no way that I'm going to be able to get my feet up. But if I take my shoulders forward, then I'll be able to start to lift my feet up. And the higher I can take my hips as opposed to back, if they're further back, then I need to get my shoulders very far forward. But if my hips are up, then I don't need to get them quite as far. So first we'll do them back. So with bent arms, squeezing the knees around the arms nice and tight. Bent arms, shoulders forward, forward, forward. Start to take one foot off. It's getting nice and light. Second foot off. Shoulders in front of wrists. And take it back. That's our crow pose, Bakasana. But then we can also do crane pose, Bakasana, where we have straighter arms. Think of cranes because they've got longer legs than crows. Got longer arms here. Those are those longer crane legs. So we take the knees up a little bit higher this time, hips up higher, shoulders don't need to go as far forward. So we start to lean. We're squeezing really tight here and then lifting up. And then if you feel comfortable here, you're trying to get the heels closer to the glutes. Nice and tight, gaze is forward a little bit. If you look down too much, you're gonna fall. And then eventually we shoot it out, bottom of a push-up. Inhale, up dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Now that we're done that a couple times, we've probably worked the forearms a little bit more than we're used to working them. So before we're done, you can do some of those same wrist stretches we did earlier on, but there's a nice way to end things too. And that is, you take your forearm to the ground, and you take your opposite knee, and start to work it into the forearm. And that's just a big massage for that forearm that just worked real hard to help you do a hard pose. And then, of course, switch it out. You can start to work down towards the wrist a little bit, and then back up, putting in as much weight as feels comfortable for you. And that should be it. It's not an easy pose. It's something that takes a lot of people a while to do, but if you keep practicing it every day, you're gonna get better at it. The other thing to do is just push-ups. It requires a lot of strength, and push-ups are gonna help with that. That's something that we do in our chaturangas, in our up dogs and down dogs, and it's something that will help with the Bakasana. So I hope that was helpful for you. Please feel free to reach out to the studio, reach out to me if you've got any questions, and then check out all of the other videos that we're putting up online and for lots of great tips. Have a great day.